Namaste, Pranam Bharat ji.
प्रणाम प्रणाम।
Thank you for arranging, coming here for, taking this session. You know, if you remember, you are the first one who we started,
Yes,
recording and designing the Sunday course.
yes,
So you blessed us almost, I think, 4 years ago when you agreed to have this course, with Center for Indic Studies.
hmm,
And now a lot of participants are there and they are actively, involved in this course. We are regularly getting messages from them for appreciating, uh, the content that you have shared with them. And keeping that in mind, we thought that, apart from static content that they already have through course material, we should have dynamic, interactive conversation time to time, because that will help them to resolve many queries they might be facing while going through the course. Okay.
yeah,
So I think this session will take our Indic course or Natya Shastra course to the next level, where students are going, participants are going to interact directly with mentors. So this is, the next step we are going with Indic course. And again, you are the first one who are leading us in and guiding us in this path. So thank you, sir, again.
सब कुछ मिलकर ये जो हो रहा है बड़े आनंद की बात है। तो आपने नाट्यशास्त्र के विषय में ये कोर्स लिया, इसके लिए आपको धन्यवाद। निस्संदेह आप नाट्यशास्त्र में विशेष रुचि रखते हैं, तभी ये आप लोगों के लिए ये काम की चीज है। और मैं ये भी मानता हूँ कि नाट्यशास्त्र केवल उनके लिए नहीं है कि जिनको अध्ययन करना है नाट्यशास्त्र का ग्रंथ के रूप में, बल्कि उनके लिए है जिनको कला की पूरी गहराई में उतरना है। कि अगर हम नाट्यशास्त्र के जो वास्तविक उसके बनने के कारण हैं वो देखें, तो हमको समझ में आएगा कि ये एक कितनी अद्भुत घटना थी। अब इसको केवल एक कथा के रूप में हम ले सकते हैं, लेकिन उस कथा के पीछे एक पूरी कला के विकास की यात्रा है। अब ये कथा तो आपको सब पता है, इंद्र ने कहा कि क्रीडनीयकम इच्छामो, और ब्रह्मा ने उनको नाट्य वेद दिया, बल्कि इंद्र ने ही मांगा, नाट्य वेद मांगा। उन्होंने ऐसी चीज मांगी कि जो वेद की संपूर्ण शिक्षा को, उसके ज्ञान को सामान्य लोगों में पहुंचाती हो। अब एक तरीका तो ये है इस कथा के बारे में सोचने का, जैसा कि हमारे अधिकांश मार्क्सवादी और नास्तिक मित्र सोचते हैं कि ये तो सब ब्राह्मणों का एक पाखंड है और ये तो उच्च जाति ने एक लोक कला के भीतर अपने आप को प्रस्थापित और ये सब कर दिया है। तो गोइंग अहेड विद व्हाट आई वाज सेइंग, that if you look at the story about how Indra wanted the Natya Veda to be given, then one way of looking at it is the Marxist Gnostic way, which of course is much talked about these days. And there is a whole discourse which is being developed at different universities, in India especially. These people say this is the Dalit discourse. And I keep receiving messages and queries and articles from various people who describe it as an intrusion of the Brahminical class into a folk art. So that is one way of looking at the at the story. The other way of looking at the story is that the knowledge of the Vedic text, यानी चारों वेदों का जो ज्ञान है, जो उसकी सबसे गहराई में शिक्षा है, उस शिक्षा को कैसे सामान्य लोगों तक पहुंचाना. Now, this should not be taken as just a pretension. I don't think that this very noble idea, which our ancestors had very early conceived, that some of the deepest methods of instruction, that some of the deepest methods of knowledge should be made available to all. Now, this concept is very crucial. This concept is very real. And it is a 100% Indian concept. You'll ask me, do I have any proof of it? Can I cite something which may be considered as real proof? And I will say yes. Now, the proof of it is this, that so many technical terms like rasa, like tal, like rag, like ananda, all these terms are used by most common people in India in all different languages. Of course, there are other words for them, local words for them. Like in Hindi, we'll say maza aa gaya instead of saying ras aa gaya. But then the common person in India understands what is the meaning of rasa. And he uses rasa whether for food or for conversation or for painting, just exactly the same way it is used in Natya Shastra. So this is one proof. The point I'm trying to make is this, that art and the value of art and the purpose of art, which is not a small thing, and which is not something which is conceived by, let's say, an average person, but which is conceived by thinkers, which is conceived by Rishi Munis, by Manishis, by Munis like Bharat Muni. These profound things are made available to all. And this happens not by accident. This happens by choice. And the result of this was that India produced so much art. You see, no country has produced so much art as India has done, especially when you consider how much of Indian art has been destroyed by plunderers and invaders and iconoclasts and various other people who don't like art. In spite of that, India has huge amount of art. So India was producing this art not in order to sell it, not in order to make money out of it. As a matter of fact, people are making money out of Indian art by stealing it. Now, India was not exporting art to make money. India was exporting art to expand on knowledge, to transmit the Vedic way of life. Or if you have an allergy towards the use of the word Vedic, then let us say some of the deepest values of civilization of India, those values right across the seas, right across the land. And we know that we have more than 2,000 years of history of how systems of darshanas, systems of knowledge were transmitted across the continents, both towards the west and towards the east for a very long time. So, the story of Natya Shastra or Natya Veda or Natyotpatti is not just a story. It is an ideal that has been practiced, and it is a civilizational victory. It is something which has been demonstrated for a long time. So, this is the most important thing about Natya. The second most important thing about Natya is that it improves your daily living. It makes your living as purposeful, because Natya is rasa, Natya is art, and Natya is concerned and entwined with the other three Purusharthas. Out of the four Purusharthas, Dharma, Artha, Kam, and Moksha, Natya may be just Kam for somebody, or Natya may be just Artha for somebody. But for so many other people, it is Dharma. As a matter of fact, even for those who are practicing it as Artha, that is, those who are making a living out of it, for them also, there is a great feeling of Dharma. They do practice that art as Dharma. Dharma means something which sustains you, something which keeps your head high, something which gives you a purpose in life, something which is valuable and which you can transmit to your children and to your environment. So, art has been practiced as a dharma, and it has been practiced not as a dharma by the learned, but it has been practiced by the least learned. But those who know that art, those who practice that art, maybe a small sculptor who only clears the stone for a great sculptor to make something beautiful out of it, or the one who just chisels. But this kind of devotion to art, which was part of the whole system, is related to the concept of four Purusharthas. And whatever you do, even for a living, helps you realize the other three Purusharthas. So these are some of the most profound values that Natya Shastra is telling us. Now, having given you just a idea which perhaps is not part of the course and is not there, I would want that you make your reactions to just what I have said, and primarily to the questions that you have for the course. So please, you can write your questions, you can speak your questions, and that would be nice.
Sir, I have a question.
Yes, please. Just
Namaste, sir. I'm Mrs.
spell
Vini.
out your name. Spell out your name so that.
Yes, I'm Mrs. Vini Ishwar from Dubai. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and I'm a Kuchipudi artist.
Very nice.
Yeah, practicing Kuchipudi, learning the art and teaching also.
Right.
So, sir, first of all, thank you so much for launching such a wonderful session where you have given different dimensions to the subject, is what I understood as a learner, because you have compared with the Greek system of theater, and there is a lot of inputs where it was very simple to understand, and we really enjoyed. Of course, we have not finished reading the complete chapters, but still, I have a very basic question here. Now, as you keep saying that Natya Shastra, it talks all about theater, and every scholar says that Natya Shastra is all about theater. But as a teacher or learning a particular classical dance form, or where now we can see the Ekapatra Kelika of a solo dance format, how does Natya Shastra literally help? Because we have only the fourth chapter and the 10th chapter kind of which deals with the Ankika part or the footwork, and then we have the Rasa theory. So these are the only very few chapters where we apply in the dance. So how can this help us beyond a particular, how Natya Shastra can help us?
All right. Now, let me rephrase your question.
Yes,
Uh, and let me rephrase your difficulty. This difficulty is not just with you,
yeah,
but with a very large number of
yes, sir.
dancers. And in another manner, it's a difficulty which accosts or confronts, let us say, theater people, that is, somebody who is a theater artist, who is an actor in films, or who is an actor on stage.
Correct,
This is the same problem that confronts, let us say, a musician, somebody who sings Tyagaraja,
correct,
classical musician, Karnataka or North India.
yes,
This is the difficulty which would come across a painter. He'll say,
correct,
how do I relate to Natya Shastra?
correct,
Everybody says Natya Shastra has all the arts in it. But how do I relate as a Kuchipudi dancer, as a painter, as a Bombay film actor or a film actor from Chennai or whatever? So, this is basically your question. In order to understand your difficulty in communicating with the Natya Shastra, or rather the whole tradition of performance as it has existed in our land, we have to understand what was the complete performing tradition.
correct,
You see, today, film acting, kuchipudi, making painting, they are art forms which are not so much connected with other art forms. See, this is a social reality. Let's say if I am a painter, even if I am a traditional painter, I am making some paintings in the style of Nathadwara, or I am making paintings in the style of Tanjore, or I am a modern painter working in Chennai or Bengaluru or Delhi, then I have a world today which is very limited. It's a painter's world and it has a painter's audience. But in ancient times, this painter was largely employed in a temple. And he or even she was making paintings in the temple. You see, on the roof of the temple, on the side of the temple, or on the pillars of the temple, because temples were painted. They were not like as you see them today. They were not just like stone, bare stone, archaeological stone. And this was so not only in India, this was in other parts of the world also, in Greece as well. So after making that beautiful statue, they would paint the statue. So the painter was therefore part of the temple art. Today you say, I am a temple dancer because I am practicing a form of Kuchipudi or Bharatnatyam, let's say Bharatnatyam, which was reconstructed, as many people tell you, Brahminically done so by Rukmani Arundel. And actually, it is something which comes from temple dancing, it comes from Devadasis. So today, your vision is actually of limited to 200 years of Indian art, Indian dance. You are not going far back 1000 years when, as a dancer, you were also dancing on the stage. When, as a dancer, you were also acting the role, let us say, of Shakuntala or of Vasavadatta or of Rukmani in a play. Today, as a Kuchipudi or a Bharatnatyam dancer, you don't speak a dialogue.
Yes, correct.
You only sing inside your mind the pada which is being sung by your orchestra, your guru, the vocalist. So you are also singing it inside so that you can dance to it, but you are not speaking a dialogue. So your art form today is an art form which is rather limited. Natya Shastra is talking about a theater in which the actor was dancing, speaking a dialogue, and was playing a role. So now let us start with you as Kuchipudi dancer. Suppose tomorrow you make an item in which you speak a dialogue also, which is not just the padam which is being sung,
Correct.
which is a dialogue, a samvad.
Yes.
If you are doing Bhama Kalapam,
There was a samvad.
then in this you start speaking a dialogue to Krishna. Whatever character you want to represent or situation or whatever kind of Naika at that moment you want Radha, whether she is angry, whether she is in, pleading or whatever. So she speaks a dialogue. So if you do that, then all the critics will say, oh, she has brought in theater. Am I right?
Correct.
So
Because we have already revived and we have already come so much front where we have literally abolished so much of system of the earlier dancing. So in the present day, do you really feel that, the present modern day artists must go back and do the, vachikam or the erotic expressions?
yes, certainly. And I would not say go back. I would say go forward. Because you are taking certain principles from ancient times.
Correct.
You are taking certain perennial principles, certain siddhantas, certain elements, tattvas from Natya Shastra, and you are using them today. You will create a new form. That's how Natya becomes very useful. It becomes useful to the painter, to the musician, to the dancer. When you start connecting your dance or your painting or your music to other art forms, and it becomes a composite art form, not a isolated art form. So till 10th century, 11th century, there was live theater in which all these things existed. But then as theater moved out of the city, as it could not be performed in the Islamic rule in the cities of India, slowly and slowly it went out into the countryside and it became religious theater. Only for Krishna Bhakti in an ashram of Krishna, or for Rama Bhakti, or for some temple where there would be just archana performed in dancing. Not that these things were not being done earlier. Of course, they were being done. They were Devadasis for thousands of years who were doing archanas morning, evening, afternoon for the Devata and the Devi. But then that only survived. That big theatrical form which is described to us in Natya Shastra, that disappeared. That fell out of practice. That survived in certain forms like Yakshagana. And then so many things dropped out of it. So you had a limited kind of performance. And now in the 20th century, when people came from England and United States on a Fulbright grant, then they started making an ethnographic study, and then they said, this is folk art. This is the little vehicle and what is described in the Natya Shastra is the great vehicle, right? So these are all studies, academic distinctions made by American and European and anthropologists and ethnomusicologists. They
So
are
Nati
not.
Shastra doesn't describe any
Yeah,
folk or
Natya
classical
Shastra is talking about the theater,
theatre.
about the painting, about the art form, which was a total composite form, which was performed.
So, sir, may I ask you a doubt? Like, what was the earlier dancing? Because now in the fourth chapter, or we have the Karnas or Angaharas or the Hastas. So, how the theater was with Vachika? Okay, the
All
dance
these
part.
things, all these things were part of what was done on stage. You see, whenever you will dance, you will use your hand and feet. So you will use your hands in a certain position and you will combine that position with a position of feet. That is a karana. What else is? Hastapada samayogo. Hastapada samayogo. That is a karana. That's the definition of a karana. So, karanas were used in dance everywhere. They are used universally all over the world. But in India, they systematized it. They gave it a name. So you use this karana whenever you do nritta, whether you do it as part of theater, in theater, whether you do it as part of a character, or you do it only as just dancing, or you do it as pindi bandha. So that is a perpetual employment which is done.
So you feel so today at present, like the solo format, in the solo format itself, we can give these touches of.
You are already keeping those.
Already, yeah, we are already doing
They
it,
are
but
all,
to reach to its fullest, like.
yes, in the Ekaharya Abhinay, you are just doing all what was done on the stage, but you are doing it in a limited fashion. You see, the greatest responsibility today of recreating ancient theater can be achieved by the dancers of India, classical dancers of India. Not just Bharatnatyam, but all, from different parts of the country. Because they have to just expand their art. Bring in the dialogue ko beech mein le aiye. Then certain movements which are needed. All that becomes important. So then you can have different kinds of costumes. You can recreate that whole theatrical position by experimenting. You can expand upon your present day number. I mean, you keep your traditional Bhama Kalapam as it is, you do that, perform that, but you recreate another 10-minute episode or half an hour episode in which you use, let us say, dialogue, in which instead of one person dancing, Eka Hari, there are three people, in which there is a separate Krishna. So there is a Bhama and a Krishna and a third character. So that way you will expand and recreate the ancient theater. And I think that is a great challenge.
Yes, because reading the text and understanding the right gesture is a little difficult as a dancer, because what we're interpreting is it right?
That
We have
is
so many questions like,
yeah.
is it right? What we are doing? Is it, are we interpreting it right? So,
So can I take up another
yeah,
question
yeah,
from
sure,
somebody
sure,
else?
sure.
Then come back to your
Yes, 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 sir. Thank you so much.
question, certainly. So more questions from somebody else, please. Do do
Sir,
do tell me your name. Speak out your name loudly, and then your question.
yes. Namaste, sir.
Say.
Thank you for the talk. And I really learned so much doing the Natya Shastra course. I'm very grateful. I'm a Bharatanatyam dancer and teacher based in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia.
Very good.
It, I just have one specific question, is that can we take a shloka from the Natyotpatti and then do a dance on it so that, the children also learn how the
Yes.
Natya Shastra came up, and the audience who are watching it also will understand a bit. For that, I could you please tell us which would be the best shlokas to take?
Okay. Your question is, what are the shlokas in Natya Shastra which give an account of what is Natya Shastra?
Yes, and why it was made.
Yes. Now you see, there are definitional shlokas about everything which is a constituent of Natya Shastra, right? And in each chapter, when they deal with something, then they define it. Now, there is one shloka which describes the 11 elements of Natya. Rasa bhava hi abhinaya dharmi vritti pravittaya siddhi swaras tathatodhyam ganam rangascha sangraha. These are the 11 elements, and I'm sure that in my course I must have cited that and given you that. So there are shlok in Natya Shastra which would talk about what is rasa, what is abhinaya, what is vritti, what is siddhi, two kinds of siddhi. So there are definitional shloks all over Natya Shastra, and you can select out of them.
But sir, my question is,
Huh.
I want a shloka for Natyotpatti. How, why, and for what reason Natya Shastra was written? It's just like it was taken from the Vedas, and then it
Yes,
was.
but then that is of course all given, with, I mean, those shlokas are there where Indra says, Kridaniyakam ichhamo, and then he goes on to say that there is no Veda Vyavahar, that is, people do not, everybody cannot possibly read the Vedas, etc. So
So
all
can we
those
take
shlokas
that?
are given in the,
Yes, sir.
huh?
So my question is, can we take that and make it into a dance, and will it still fall in the Shastriya Nritya?
You see, you can make a dance on certain shlokas, but this dance would be only shikshartha. This will be only for classroom study.
You cannot do it on stage.
No, you can if you like. People have tried it, people have described it. Uh, it depends on you how you make it. As a matter of fact, you can do it. Many people have tried different portions of it. But the people who would like to come and see this kind of performance would be those who want to learn more about Natya Shastra or about Natya or about dance. Because people want to watch, let us say, when they go to watch a film or a play or something, then they want to watch a story and action. See?
Yes, sir, but we have like a 2 hour performance.
Yes,
We can do.
certainly, Aparna.
Okay.
You can do this, and I think it is a great job if you can do it.
Thank you, sir. I want to
It will be
take your
something
blessing.
wonderful
Thank
because
you.
you can For instance, you can start with this verse, Rasa Bhava Hi Abhinaya, where 11 elements are given. And then there is a description of 4 kinds of Abhinay, Angik, Vachik, Satvik. So you can put this all into Angik Abhinay and do that on the stage so that your students and even people like me who are so fond of Natya Shastra would love to see it. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. With
So
your
I,
we try to do so.
I wish you all the success in it. And when you have done something, I would love to see it. Yes.
Your blessings, sir, and with the Almighty's
Yes.
blessing.
Chaliye. Shubhamastu.
Thank you.
Yes. Next question, please.
Sir, namaste.
Namaskar.
Hardik from Karnataka.
Right.
Sir, actually, in the course you explained, when you explained about the Ranga, like you mentioned, give an example of Ekshagana. Like till today, now also in Ekshagana, we can see the backstage, like performers, singers, the tabla artists or the mridanga, they sit in the back and the friends, they do the natya and all. But when the Ekshagana is so close to that Natya Shastra, then why we call it as a folk art? Why we brand it as a folk art? Even though we don't have a proper structure in Ekshagana, I agree. But who branded it as a folk art? Why, when it is so close, like we have a talk, we have a padya, we have a natya, abhinaya, veshabhushana, everything is there in the Ekshagana. So why we call it as a...
And another art form which is low. The Natya Shastra only says either there is good Natya, successful, or there is bad Natya, which is not successful. Who performs it, where it is performed, that is not important. If it is able to provide rasa, if it is able to capture the audience, if it is able to establish a tradition, then it is Natya. So this distinction of folk and classical, this is a modern European distinction. This applies to European arts or European art forms. In India, we never believed in it. We always took different art forms and we imported things from one into another. Something which was done in the city, it was adopted by people in the village or in the agriculture area. Something which was done in the agricultural area was adopted by the city performers. As a matter of fact, people who did performance, they performed in the city as well as the village. They traveled all over India. You see, the Natya Shastra gives an account of different kinds of people who live in India, of the different kind of languages they speak. And then what are the tastes of people? Like people in the south like more song and dance. So if you go and perform there, then you should include more song and dance in your performance. Now, all this happened in the city also. Now you have to do it under the invitation of Sahitya Academy or Sangeet Natak Academy, under a special grant, and they have then, they say we are bringing in the folk arts, constantly performing in the cities. So people never said that they are folk people or they are Gramya Natyakaras. They were never called as Gramya people, art form, by a style. Just as we know people singing music in the south as singers of Carnatic music. That's all. But they come and perform all over India today. And earlier also they were performing all over India today, in the past. We have references of people being invited from deep south to perform in the north. in literature, there are performances, there are references. So, uh, ancient India was a very cosmopolitan culture, and everything was being uh, picked up from one part of the country and it was transmitted to all other parts of the country. So and I'm glad you said this, that why do you call it folk form? I am against it. It should not be called a folk form. It is dance of India. These are dances of India, these are theaters of India, these are performances of India. They belong to the whole country. Yes, please.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
So my question is actually, I was thinking about whatever you were sharing with us thus far. So art is basically about creativity at some level, and the Natya Shastra gives us certain parameters or certain ways of appreciating or producing or looking at art.
Yeah.
So now, as much as we may be, historically nostalgic of what was there in the ancient past,
Yeah.
art is being produced even today in India,
Right.
maybe under influences of other cultures also, which were always there. We influenced other cultures may have somewhat influenced us,
Yes.
the Greeks and others, of course.
Certainly.
Yes,
Certainly.
sir. Because human beings everywhere can be creative in their own ways. But my
Yeah.
question is, of course, sir. But my question is that, for example, if we look at Bollywood today, I'm doing a PhD from Nottingham Trent University on how and why Bollywood is so popular internationally in Africa, in the Middle East, and Southeast
Yeah.
Asia. In South America, you have non-Indian people, not people of Indian origin, who actually watch a lot of Indian cinema. And I wanted
Yeah.
to, therefore, I was more interested in this course on the Natya Shastra, that what is it about Indian aesthetic that maybe still subconsciously, I'm sure a lot of the Bollywood filmmakers may not have studied the Natya Shastra, but still it's there in our genes as Indians.
Yes.
So what is it about Indian cinema that takes from maybe the Natya Shastra or the Indian aesthetic
Yeah.
that is reflected in our cinema, and is it that strikes a chord with non-Western people especially?
Right.
In Russia and Germany, we did have a phase of popularity of Bollywood, but not so much anymore. But across the non-Western world, Bollywood still has huge resonance in Central Asia and
Not just answering on my part, but uh, more research, more understanding, and dialogue. Now,
Okay,
I
sir.
will tell you what I think about this whole thing.
Yes, sir.
See, Bollywood is a mixture of a very modern art form called cinema and traditional Indian theatre. Now, as you can understand, that cinema is primarily theatre through celluloid medium, but it is basically theatre. It is basically, according to our definitions of India, it is basically Natya because it is Drishya and Shravya, heard and seen together. This is the most essential quality of theatre. That it's an art form in which you see and hear together. Whether the medium is celluloid, whether the medium is the body itself, or the medium is a cell phone or a laptop or television. Huh?
Of course.
Now, cinema is also a modern 20th century art form. It is an art form which is dependent on 20th century audience.
Of course.
It is not dependent on, let us say, 10th century AD Hindu India or certain other regions of India or temples of India. It is something which is located in these different modern countries. However, Indian cinema, is presenting things which are based upon certain concepts which are very ancient and which are specifically Indian.
Like,
Very,
sir,
very Indian.
examples, sir?
Now example. First of all, you must make a distinction between last 10, 15 years of Bollywood and let us say films made in India from 1950 till 2000.
Okay.
See, there is a marked difference.
Uh-huh.
The films which were made in 50s and 60s, they were about stories, they were about problems, they were about social conditions which were very real,
Hmm.
which were the life of the people
Mm-hmm.
and the problems of the people.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody wanted to glorify them.
Hmm.
Everybody, whether the filmmakers in India or the audience in Russia or Greece or Turkmenistan, they wanted to look beyond those problems. So they were serious about the purpose of cinema, purpose of theater. Now, the situation today is different. The films of last 20 years, maybe there are a couple exceptions, but by and large, the films of last 20 years, they are not targeting themselves on social situations.
Mm-hmm.
You see, they are pure celluloid.
Uh-huh.
They're representing things which exist only in the studio. You know, like a clerk will have a house which will be rich man's, more glamorous than a rich man's house, or there is no context to it. The hero would do all kinds of things which are not socially real.
Mm-hmm.
So you have today a character, so you have made people who are not people who belong to a national narrative. They come from somewhere which are the world of fantasy.
Uh-huh.
This is the situation in last 20 years of film. But if you go back to films of 50s and 60s, the films of Raj Kapoor, Dilip Kumar,
Mm-hmm.
Sunil Dutt, which had a huge following in, for instance, in Greece, in Turkey. In Turkey, they made a film which copied Avara in Turkish.
Mm-hmm.
I have a recording of it. A Turkish Avara,
Mm-hmm.
exact copy. In Greece, they made dozens and dozens of Greek films in which they picked up Indian film songs and just translated them into Greek.
Yeah. I'm aware of that, sir.
And then people know Raj Kapoor and people know Nargis and everybody in Russia.
Hmm.
Now, this is not with Salman Khan.
Hmm.
This is not with a modern contemporary actor. Why?
Mhm.
Because now the films have changed, but yet people are still seeing them.
Yes.
Now, people are seeing them because there is a lot of song and dance in it. The primary reason for that is song and dance. Now, if you see a film from 1930 in India, like even Harishchandra, or you come to a later film, at that time in 30s and 40s, film were mythological, Puranic. I don't use the word mythology, I use the word Purana,
Puranic, absolutely.
from Puranas.
Yes, sir.
Then they would talk about characters which were living characters of Hindu India.
Mhm.
Now, these living characters of Hindu India can be easily appreciated by Africans, by Muslims, by Russians, because they are about fundamental issues of life.
Mhm.
just as I, as an Indian, can appreciate Shakespeare's Hamlet, or I can appreciate Sophocles' Oedipus, a tragic hero, because they talk about certain fundamental problems in life. Shall I perform what is necessary for my religious duty, or shall I obey the king? You see, it's a fundamental conflict. Now, Indian films were taking up these themes. They were taking up themes of social order also. You know, a poor boy comes to a city, or a girl who is very new in a city is being exploited, and all these things. And people in Turkey, in Turkmenistan, in Russia, they found social conditions parallel to this. Now, today, society all over the world has become very affluent. You know, upper middle class or rich class. So they want entertainment. They want kicks. They want sensation. And here, song and dance and all kinds of exotic India appeals to them. But it is cheap India. It is not profound India. It is not an India which talks about the depth of human struggle. It is not India which talks about dharma sankat. Shall I keep my word, or shall I look for a convenient way out? Huh?
Yes, sir.
So people are still seeing Indian films because there is an element of either very good entertainment, very good box office affair. You see, just as Americans have succeeded in creating Broadway. Now, Broadway, as you understand, as I look upon it, is no art. See, there's very little art in it. It's all glamour. It's all show. It's using techniques in such a manner that it just astonishes you, you know. But there is no depth to it. It's not something you go back after 10 years. So Bombay films or Bollywood today has come to that level of, I would even say, degradation, where it is sensational, where it is very exotic, where it has a lot of sexuality for them, because the way Indian heroines can dance and present themselves, it's very far out, it's very exotic. But this is the primary reason. However, the profound question connected with Natya Shastra is
Yes,
this.
sir.
And the principle is simple. When you need to when you need to express the profundity of an emotion, the depth of an emotion, then you can do it only through poetry and song, through literary device, through song and music. Because then a simple dialogue or even a literary dialogue will not function. When your emotion is very elevated. Now, I'll give you a very simple example from a classical play. You have all known the play called Mrithyakatikam.
Yes, sir.
So one day, the hero Charudat is told that his house has been robbed. So he comes out into the courtyard to see the syringe or the hole in the wall which had been made by the thief. And they say that, look, this rascal, this thief, he came through this wall. He broke the wall here and he entered the house and he robbed us of the jewelry. Now, Charudat he looks upon that whole and he finds that it is made so artistically, so beautifully, that he is fascinated by the design.
Wow.
He is such a connoisseur of art that for a moment he forgets his personal loss. उसको ध्यान नहीं रहता कि मैं तो लुट गया.
जी.
वो कहता है ये क्या बना है, अद्भुत है. So the skill of the thief is something which elevates his emotion and he sings out a verse. So that is where music is essential. And Natya Shastra says it very clearly in the 32nd chapter that when words fail, music takes over.
Wow.
Now, this is used constantly in Indian films.
True.
That you have a story, the story progresses one episode after another, but in between, when there is a transition of an emotional state, there is a song. So whenever there is deep emotion, there must be a song. Now this is specifically Natya Shastra.
Yes, sir.
Because this is found in our ancient plays,
Uh-huh.
or what some people wrongly call Sanskrit drama.
Uh-huh. Why is it wrong,
Ancient
sir?
drama. Because there was very little Sanskrit in it. There was 80% Prakrit in it.
Oh, okay, sir.
So the important thing is that this technique of using music to express emotion, deep emotion, profound emotion, and then come back to the mundane emotion or the average emotional expression. Then when there is again something deep to be expressed, you will sing. So this alternate between the two, this was the technique which was used in our ancient drama. And this is the technique they used in all forms, whether high form, low form, village form, non-village form. This is the standard form. You find it in Kuchipudi, you find it in Yakshagan, you find it in Kudiyattam, isn't it? You constantly find it.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. So we can go to the next question.
Hello, hi Professor Bharat.
Hello.
My name is Partha Sarathi and I'm from Bangalore. I didn't learn any classical dance, but I love to watch, especially in movies, when the movie is based on like dance films. There are like so many movies, Shankarabharanam, like Saptapadi. There are so many Telugu movies which
Yeah.
are based on dance forms
Music.
and music. And this is something that inspires me. And, in fact, when I was a kid, about 10 years, I wanted to learn classical dance. But my father said, there is an inherent problem because when a boy or when a man learns classical dance, the way they walk, the way they gesture will change. They become more feminine.
Yeah.
And he discouraged me, and maybe it is good or bad, I don't know, but is it something true, one? And it is also evident that when you see like some of the stereotypical way they portray like male dance teachers in some of the old Bollywood movies, someone eating like pan and like making like weird odd
Yeah.
gestures, and
Yeah.
is the influence that, or historically there has been some truth in that? Like are there any limit to the way you perform for a man and a
Yeah, I
woman
understand.
when they dance?
Yeah, I know the question that you have put in. Now, your question, if I can rephrase it. So, you see, your question is like this. My father said that if I become a dancer, then I would become very feminine in my movements. And it would be almost a transgender situation. And that is something which is not socially acceptable unless you are a professional dancer belonging to the dancing class, etc., which somebody in your family and your father may not have liked, and very rightly so. And now the question is that did he do the right thing? Now, I would say it this way, that maybe he did the right thing, seeing certain social conditions and other things. But the question is it essential that if somebody learns dance, then he, as a male, would become effeminate? Is it necessary? Now, I would say no, it's not necessary. You see, this whole thing of the dancer, the male dancer becoming very effeminate was actually a social posture. That was part of a period of dancers. Because now today it is not necessary. Very effeminate if you, so you would perform your art accordingly at that moment on the stage. But in life, you don't have to adopt that series of just certain dancers. There are some young friends of mine who are, there is one in Bangalore also, who is a professional male dancer. And, he conducts himself like any other male Bangalorean.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Yes, more questions, please. Right.
Sir, when there is a one Natya Shastra,
Yeah.
all the notes, then how did so much of dance forms like Kuchipudi, Bharatanatyam, Yakshagana, or in Mohiniyattam, this evolved? Like, what made it so different from one another? Whether the
Yes.
root is same Natya Shastra, like, whether it is a geographical
Right.
condition which made it so different?
Yeah. Yeah. The question is, Natya Shastra is one, but
Yeah.
then so many art forms are there. There are dozens and dozens. Huh?
Yes.
There are so many of them. Now, this is exactly what the Natya Shastra is about. Natya Shastra is not asking you to perform certain things only in one way. Natya Shastra is encouraging you to constantly innovate in style, in location, according to the audience, innovate according to your imagination, according to your inner feeling, your bhava, according to your concept of the world, how you see the world, how you see things, how you see different characters, and how you see certain fundamental art forms, how you change them in style. So change of style is something which is most essential and welcome for Natya Shastra world. Because Natya Shastra is only giving you certain fundamentals. But when I apply that fundamental in my part of the country, in my region, then I follow a certain tradition. And that tradition is different from another tradition. I have 4 kinds of Abhinaya, Angik, Vachik, Satvik, Aharya. But each has a different Aharya. Each has a different language. Each has a different Vachik. And on the stage, each does the Sattvic expression there and then with innovation. So the diversity of forms is the most essential thing in Natya Shastra. Natya Shastra is constantly looking for diversity of form. And all other texts which followed Natya Shastra later, you see, Natya Shastra is only the first prayog, Natya prayog. But then we have Brihaddeshi, then we have so many large line of them, right up to Sangeet Ratnakar and later Nritya Ratnavali, and you know, Parshvadev wrote Sangeet Samay Sar. They all describe different regions, different styles, different things which have added to the tradition of Natya Shastra. So it is one big growth, but they all follow certain fundamentals. It's not as if those fundamentals don't exist. Some people would like to tell us that there are no such fundamentals, but that's not true. They are there. And anybody who practices the art really has no doubt about it. I mean, they may call certain steps not by the same name as they do it in another part of the country. For instance, you will call certain movements as Aduvu in Bharatnatyam, but you will have a different name in Kuchipudi for it, or you will have a different name in Kathak for it, or in Odissi for it. But you would be performing something very simple. And there will be a common name for that, like Padachari. You know, different kinds of charis are there. You know, so those are Padacharis. So Padacharis are known by different names in different parts of India, and they are done with a different style. Any great expert dancer who knows the different styles and who has done it in who knows different styles of dancing, she would be able to perform and demonstrate it before you. Yes, more questions, please.
Sir, one question.
Yeah, please.
Sir, we would like to understand what will be your message to the recent artists of dance or whatever field they may choose. Like we all know that Natya Shastra or Natyam is something where we need a live audience, which was very specifically
Yes.
written, and which we need a live audience, unlike cinema. So of late, what we feel is people are not in that level of understanding of what we present, or which is very highly intellectual, and they cannot understand the subject and
Understand what?
understand the subject of what we perform, whatever it may be, like music or
Yes.
so.
Yes.
There is a tendency of enjoying it much lesser, like unlike Bollywood, what Mr. Karmani was rightly mentioning, where it is something very unreal and people are very happy to see the unreal things. So, but where we are producing such a highly technical topic, and where it's very difficult to see people to really enjoy this high level of rasa theory. So, what we would like to understand, what will be your message?
What you are saying is like this, that a given audience is not able to enjoy
Yeah,
each and every aspect of your performance. Now, this was true even in ancient times. There is a verse in Natya Shastra which describes what you are saying. Exactly, it describes. And I will read out that verse and explain it to you. The verse is, it says that Vyaktam Icchanti Panditaha. I forget the whole verse, but the meaning of the verse is Vyaktam Icchanti. Okay, now I recall the verse. All right, here it is. Acharyaha samam icchanti. You see, those who are acharyas or those who are dancers like you are, they want a perfect balance of everything. That everything should be there in the right place. Nothing should be excess. It's not as if you have done too much music in it, or too much footwork in it, or excessive costume in it. Huh? They want a perfect balance and everything should be there. Acharyas, those are called acharyas. Acharyah samam icchanti, vyaktam icchanti pandita. Those who are grammarians, those who are more concerned with language, they'll say dialogue must be spoken correctly, words should be spelt out, no wrong enunciation. Huh? Vyaktam icchanti pandita. Narya madhura michanti. The women in the audience, they would like some sweet songs. You see, they go for them. They say, we must, if there are no good sweet songs, then what do we have come to theater or cinema for? Narya madhura michanti. And those who are neither acharyas, nor pandits, nor women, what do they want? They want action. They want marpeat. They want all kinds of violence and sensationalism. So your audience would appreciate things according to their capability of absorbing. There will be a few people who will be able to appreciate everything because they know, they understand, they are acharyas, but others won't. So the important thing for you is to perform the total art. Remember, you are doing it not for yourself or not for the worldly audience only. You're doing it for the gods as well. You know, there are two kinds of siddhis. Please.
Vibhava Siddhi and Manusha Siddhi, which
हाँ,
should,
तो आप भगवान के लिए भी कर रही हैं, देवताओं के लिए भी कर रही हैं. And they are acharyas, they are more than acharyas, they are Indras. So they will appreciate it, then acharyas will appreciate it, then in the audience, different kinds of audience will appreciate it. And then you will appreciate what you were doing anyway,
of course.
which is swantah sukha, which is for your happiness, sukha. Yeah. Yes. There's another question.
Namaste, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, just one question. Sir, I teach a lot of young children. So I want to know what I can do to inspire them to start wanting to read, and get to know our Puranas and then go to Nashastra and, really start liking Indic culture. Because I live outside of India and
Yes.
I see them for a short while once a week. I'd really like them to be inspired like how I am. I'm so excited about everything I read, even at this age. I'm pretty old, and I'm excited about reading the Purana, getting to a course and wanting to do it and all that. So I want my students to have that.
Interested in the whole story and other things. Now,
Yes, and even
what you should do is to present dance, storytelling, theater as a leela, as a game, as a play. You see, as something which the children, the young students of yours can do and interact with each other. Something they can do in a group. You see, they should learn how to work with each other and enjoy their time with each other. Perform a story, read out some dialogues, get involved with each other, and then from there you take them to some kind of a serious dancing. You have to create a world of interest for them so that they can relate to it. Now, that's very important if you are not located in India. Even in India, it is important now. So, we are not living in a world where our parents are talking about Puranas or stories from Puranas. So, you have to relate things in terms of a particular action. A story, a very simple story from somewhere. Maybe from Bhagavat, maybe from Ramayana, maybe from another Purana or something, like the story of Shibi, who gave part of his flesh to an eagle. You know the story where the eagle was chasing a pigeon, and you know the whole story.
Yes.
So this is something which will interest a child, as it doesn't require a lot of paraphernalia and understanding of various things. And there are dozens and dozens of stories in India. Stories from Panchatantra, which is with animals, talking about animals behaving as human beings. You see, animals which are behaving as animals, and at the same time they are more intelligent than human beings. So this whole interaction between animals and humans, this is very important, because the modern world, particularly the modern European and American world, looks upon animals as creatures which are far removed from humans. You see, the whole Western project of evolution has brought in a sense of superiority in Homo sapiens, in human beings. Human beings have started thinking of themselves as the best of creation, the top of creation. Now, which is not the Hindu view. The Hindu view is that everything in the creation, from a stone to a Maharshi, is part of God's creation. It is Prakriti. And nothing is inferior and nothing is superior. Now, it is deeply connected because it is all expression of the cosmos. So if you can get children interested in the cosmos and then tell the story of the cosmos, parts of the cosmos, then you would be serving the the cause of the Hindu thought, as well as you would be getting them interested into your art form.
Also, to add to that, so if you
Yes.
really see yogasanas,
Yeah.
in yogasanas we have like Pijanasana, Cat Asana,
Right.
and also so many yogasanas, they are
Right.
very similar to some of the postures in dance.
Right.
So that is, we have to do those just to feel how that pigeon will think, how it feels, where
Yes.
the weight balance and so on.
Exactly. I'm very glad. I'm very, very glad that you have made this observation as to why are so many of the asanas given names from animals and birds. Because we don't think of birds and animals as distinct from the great expression of life. The only difference is in so if that species is different, then that species is not disconnected with that cycle of life, with that cycle of cosmos. Every species is part of that cosmos. And that is why one species can talk about another species in terms of similarity. Natya Shastra talks about women in a given chapter in a very great detail. It describes women as a lioness, as a female crocodile, as a monkey, as this, as that. Now, many people get offended by it, and some feminists would say it is an insult to women. But that's because they don't understand the logic behind the whole thing. Yes. Any more questions, please? Yeah.
This is related to the course. I don't know, sir. I mean, this is related to the evaluation of the quizzes that are there. Just one small feedback from my end. I know that the feedback can be given in the end when we finish the course. But while I am familiar with Sanskrit, having studied it in high school, and I remember quite a bit of it, frankly, when we are working on, when we are doing this part-time course along with our regular work, it becomes a little strenuous actually to remember all the technical terms. I think the focus should be more on the gist of the whole thing in understanding the layout and the structure and ideas. The quizzes in objective format, they ask very specific questions which have to be based on memory. And that becomes a little challenging. That's just, I don't know if you had any role in drafting those
You were
quizzes or not,
talking,
sir.
you were talking certain exams or something, or what?
So the quizzes
Or
that
you-
are there to proceed in the course, that you finish certain chapters, then to go to the next chapter, you have to finish a certain number of quizzes with a certain
Yeah.
marks. For
Well,
that, I'm yes, sir.
you see, that is being done in order to make you revise with yourself certain things.
Sure, sir. Absolutely.
You see, let me tell you what is the way in which a traditional Shastra works. A Shastra works by giving you a whole lot of terms which are definitional, or
Yes.
let us say definitional words.
Sure, sir.
And then it describes that definition in order to describe that concept.
Sure,
For
sir.
instance, let us take the word Abhinay.
Yes, sir.
Now, if you just take the word Abhinay and say it means an actor, then that is not enough.
Sure.
There is a definition to Abhinay given. Yasmat prayogam nayate tasmat abhinayah smritah. Abhinay is that by which meaning is communicated from the actor to the audience.
Absolutely.
So Abhinay is given a specific definition. And hence, once you remember the term Abhinay and then the description, Yasmat Abhinaya Smritaha, Yasmat Prayogam Nayate, by which the performance, the meaning is taken, then you will always remember the concept. So, Shastras are made that way. And therefore, to remember certain concepts, to remember certain words, so that you can for life then remember those concepts.
So we have to be evaluated in some form. I'm not objecting to the quizzes at all. That was not the point. And the basic concepts like Abhinay and other things, Bharat Muni, who is the person, Brahma, what did he tell? I mean, those things being touched in the quizzes are fine. I'm only talking about, at places where the structure of the stage is or whatever, there are very minute details out there. And one can even remember the details, but one forgets the Sanskrit terms and stuff like that. That's all I was referring to, not just trying to say that there shouldn't be quizzes.
See,
That was not my intention. Yes.
there is an advantage in learning
Yes, sir.
certain fundamental terms,
Sure, sir.
because then you learn the whole process.
Yes,
And
sir.
one has to keep on revising them. For instance, I revise the text. Sometimes I just read through the text again, although I
Yes,
have read it for 40 years.
Sure,
But
sir.
sometimes I just sit down and read through it again.
Yes, sir.
And then often I discover something new in it.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Right.
One quick question. So, of late, so we have. I was doing another course in Center for Indic Studies,
Yeah.
Dr. Rajiv Malhotra's course, Breaking India Forces. So in that, he also describes one of the South Indian dance teachers who discovered some new symbols,
Mm.
like for cross and Christianity and so on. So
Yes.
is it something that should be taken with a pinch of salt? I mean, why is it okay that uh, the pose of, like, say, Durga
Yeah.
in a dance is fine, but then, like, say, someone who is a Christian and then start kind of culminating the traditional Natya Shastra with the newer symbols, is it something that needs to be taken with a pinch of salt? Are they doing injustice to the Natya Shastra? Or, this is something that I never understood, and I couldn't discuss this with anyone. So I thought,
Well, I don't know what exactly is Rajiv Malhotra saying. If you could repeat it.
so in the sense, like, so what they are trying to do is to kind of become more close to the Hindu audience, so as to become so that their conversion to Christianity becomes easier if they start wearing
I
saffron, if they
see.
start wearing
No, no.
symbols.
What you're talking about is that uh, you see the process which they are adopting is that they are enacting, let us say, the story of Christ in Bharatanatyam. So that is a kind of digestion of the art of Bharatanatyam to tell a Christian story. And when you tell a Christian story, then you will, of course, talk about the cross. You will talk about the place where Christ was crucified. You will talk about crucifixion. And you will talk about many things. Primarily, what is being said is, or what is being objected to by Rajiv Malhotra or many people for that matter, is that Bharatnatyam should not be used for telling the story of Christ because that is an appropriation of an art form. Now, personally, I don't think that uh, this is going to make much of a difference. You see, they are going to use your art form to tell their story, and if they are able to do it well, then it will be some kind of a Christian dance or Christian Bharatnatyam. Now, just as there is Vaishnav Bharatnatyam or singing about Vishnu, or just as there is singing about Shiva, or there is telling the story of Durga and then creating all kind of gestures about Durga or postures about Durga, there would be something about Christ. Or it is not allowed, but hypothetically about Muhammad. Of course, to do it about Muhammad would be uh, a blasphemy given by the present thinking. But the Christians have started doing it. Once upon a time, the Christians would never do it because they would think that dance is something which is devilish. But now they have adopted this posture. Now, is it right for them to do it? No, that's not a question. You see, they are creating their art form. They are appropriating, of course, Bharatnatyam. If you don't want Hindus to become Christians, then you have to adopt certain other means. They adopt means of telling Hindus that they should not go for Christianity because Christianity is not such an open minded vision of the world as Hinduism is. I think it is at that level that you have to confront proselytization. But to oppose somebody dancing Bharatnatyam in order to tell a Christian story, this is something which I don't think is either possible or even desirable. I have this position, and this is my position, because let them sing, let them do Bharatnatyam and tell the story of Christ right from, if they want, they can tell the story right from the first chapter of the Bible. So we can take stories from different parts of the world, and we can, create art forms. You see, so I don't think that helps proselytize people. It all depends upon where you do it and how you do it and who does it, whether it is part of a proselytization agenda or not, or if it is part of a artistic creation. So I think one should be liberal on it. Natya Shastra is not prohibiting dancing according to certain philosophies. It is open to whatever philosophic system you want to dance. That will be your vision. So a Christian dance would communicate the Christian vision of the world, the Christian idea of the Trinity and the idea of original sin. If you want to confront that, then I think you have to do a khandan of Christianity.
Not the Natya Shastra involved in the Christianity.
Yeah,
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
how I look upon it.
Thank you.
I mean, I've had this kind of a position vis-a-vis Rajiv Malhotra and vis-a-vis certain other people. And I still have that position. I mean, I am a strong opponent of proselytization. And I don't, and I think now Hindus should actively proselytize. And I don't agree with those people who go around saying that Hinduism is not a proselytizing religion. If it has not been a proselytizing religion in the past, it should become one now. Frankly, this is my position.
I agree with that, sir. We need to know our roots, definitely.
Yes. Any more questions, please?
So I think this session has already gone too long, and आप भी थोड़ा थक गए होंगे.
So it is very nice that you people joined today and we had these sessions, and we can have these sessions again if you like. And thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Once more, we would like to express our gratitude for having agreed for this session. And as the Upanishadic dictum goes, that the Swadhyaya Pravachanacha, it has been repeatedly emphasized in the Upanishad that these are anushtheya, these are worthy to be performed, the Swadhyaya and Pravachan. So Bharat Gupta ji is his embodiment of that teaching. He has been extensively, he has studied Swadhyaya Adhyan, he has done in all various disciplines, and he has been extensively giving lectures and touring around the world, addressing conferences and all these activities. So we thank you once again, sir, for having this session, and all the students also for bringing up very relevant questions. And, thank you once again, sir.
Thank you so much, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Sarve Sukhina Hasan.
This is our Bharat Vakya. So I think now we should conclude this meeting now.
Yeah.
Sir, just one more, it's not a question, it's just enhancement of our study, like take it further. Like, if it is possible for you to introduce the continuation of this course where we can get all the chapters in a little detail, like, I mean, Now it's just set the outline of all the chapters that this contains this in that way.
Well, I have several long videos on my YouTube channel,
Okay.
and where I have dealt with almost each and every chapter.
Okay. Okay.
So
So
you can watch those videos,
sure.
and I mean, I have something like already 60 to 70 hours of lectures on Natya Shastra on my channel.
Sure. So we will
And
go
you
through
can go through all of them, and you will find that I have taken almost each and every chapter. And I am uploading some more, about another 30 hours of them in Hindi as well as in English. And so the more you watch them and the more you think about them, you will get a deeper understanding of Natya Shastra.
because every chapter there is a ask a question under every
Yeah.
chapter.
So
So
I
we
have
can ask
discussed,
question, right?
yeah,
Like we
I
can.
have discussed those questions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because
I
we
have,
get doubts when we read the chapters. So
yeah. You will see that it is being done exactly as it was done in ancient times, that we take a chapter, we go deep into it, and so it's very nice. Yeah.
thank you so much,
Okay.
sir.
Right. Namaskar.
Namaskar.